Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by listeners like you. If you enjoy this podcast, if you enjoy our coverage at Third Degree, why don't you join us on our Patreon and give us a little support? If you do, you get a little extra content there. And if you join at the Three Amigos level, you get access to our wonderful community on our Discord. Patreon.com/Third Degree. Thanks again for all your support.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas curious fan. How curious are you still, I wonder? Welcome to Third Degree, the podcast. Here he is, your favorite Luton Town fan and mine. It is Dan Crooke. Howdy, Dan.
Hello.
How curious are you these days?
Increasingly curious. But then the season will come around, and then it'll all go away.
It'll all come. There will be nothing left to be curious about. And there's your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, editor, founder of thirddegree.net, and the original soccer influencer himself, Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Peter, I would say that I'm still quite curious. I'm actually sitting on the edge of my seat waiting for things to break one way or the other with this club.
Okay, so inside your Discord, Buzz, it is, no pun intended, a beehive of activity and questions and pondering. I never cease to be marveled at the level of curiosity and question asking and anticipation and guessing and speculation that goes on in your Discord all day long. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And at some point, I just wonder if everybody can just sit tight because, believe it or not, I'm going to be positive, Peter, here.
What?
I know everybody's waiting for a center back signing. Everybody's waiting for a 10 replacement. But I am also the guy that always works off historical precedents. And history tells us that the Hunts don't do anything until the window opens. And the window doesn't open for another 48 hours. So once we get into the actual trading window, and correct me if I'm wrong, Buzz, really nobody should be sweating anything until we get into the window, because that's really, they could have all this ready to go. They're just waiting to announce it for the appropriate time. Am I right about that?
Yeah, you're right about that. Look, the window technically opens on Friday. How much would actually get over the line on Friday? It was hard
the 31st?
to say. The 31st. Yep.
Okay.
So 24 hours, not 48, but that's fine. The thing is that the people that do the business at FC Dallas is a very, very small group of people. Yes, they have this committee of like 4 or 5 voices, depending on what kind of decisions being made. But at the end of the day, it's Andre Zanata who's making the phone calls. And then, he goes down to Dan Hunt at some point. And if the move is big enough, Clark Hunt, and they go thumbs up, thumbs down, and this will be after they've already gone through all the scouts and talked to Coach Quill or whatever. So they are keeping things very, very tight-lipped. And even people that we know are like, they're not talking about it. So other clubs you see leaking out like, hey, we're in deep negotiations with this guy, with that guy. Dallas is pretty tight on that stuff. I think a lot of times the stuff you see from them is actually coming from agents or from other people in the league who are aware of things that Dallas has talked to people about, like all the Evander stuff, for example. So I think you have to just be, and we've said this all along, right, that they've done the business of tearing the team down. And now we just have to wait and see what they will deliver in the 3 weeks until the season starts. But also, don't forget that this initial window lasts till April. I mean, nobody wants to wait till April for players, but the misalignment of the windows means that it might not happen on Friday. You might have to wait a little bit to see what is going to come from some of these spots.
All right. So, Dan, if I also then put on my normal hat of being pessimistic, while they may sign players to fill all these spots, we may just want to be ready to be disappointed by the actual quality of player they sign. Is that fair?
The roster's been torn down since Pereira left. No, I mean it's year one of a rebuild. It'd be unfair to expect a championship winning team. It'd be great to expect a playoff spot, but just look for some silver linings. Don't go for the wooden spoon, and next year's another year.
So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, because we've used the term ambition on this podcast multiple times, not just in this offseason, but previous off seasons. And we've always said, hey, here's an opportunity to take a measure of Dan and Clark's ambition for this club. And something happened today, Thursday, or was kind of leaked. I don't know if any of this was actually official or just rumored, but Atlanta United, in the course of 24 hours, at least was rumored to have made 2 purchases, the rebuy of Amorim and the $22 million buy of the Middlesbrough striker. I forgot his name, Dan?
Latte.
Yeah. For essentially a combined $35 million. And this even surprised me, Buzz, was that I went back. Now, again, I have to say this for Dan's benefit. If you just take face value of the transfer market numbers, that is essentially the same amount of money as Dallas has spent in transfers in its entire 29-year existence.
We've said a lot that Lionel Messi changed the paradigm in this league. And a lot of the things we talked about with ambition is like, are you going to try and keep up with the new paradigm that we see here in this league? You know, and people like Atlanta United clearly are trying to keep up. You know, it's a partial credit to the Hunts. They did go out and spend $8 million on Alan Velasco, who they now have flipped for a profit, and they went out and spent what reported $13 million, I think, on Petter Musa. Both of those deals just blow away anything they've done before. You know, and they showed pretty clearly that when they had money coming in from a Ricardo Pepi level sale, that they would turn it around and use it. So let's be optimistic. Fingers crossed that they're going to do the same thing, because we don't know. We don't have any way to know that they are or they not. You know, we know that they're attempting to get Evander, and that's a cash purchase inside the league, and their opening offer was reported by multiple people to be $12 million. So they're playing in the right end of the pool on some of this stuff. We just need to see what happens.
Sure, but also talking about historical precedents and understanding how the operation works. The reality is this is a club that's about to undergo a severe restriction of its revenue because of the stadium situation for 3 seasons. So when Dan talks about a rebuild, the first year of a rebuild, it's not unreasonable to speculate that what we're seeing is exactly that. While they're rebuilding the stadium, they're slowly going to try to rebuild this roster from the ground up. And this year may be a difficult year. I don't think that's an unreasonable argument to be made.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad thing either, because since Oscar Pereira left, you've had some Band-Aid fixes for Lucci. Didn't work out. Nico came in. You had a couple of good signings, but still some Band-Aid fixes. That something needs to change, right? It can't just be, here's the guys that didn't make the playoffs, and here's 2 other players that probably wouldn't get in the starting lineup of a top MLS team.
You know, we've heard them talk about the likelihood that they're going to go with the 2 DP and 4 U22 initiative roster model. Even to do that, they need a DP likely to replace Alan Velasco. Could it be a young DP? Potentially, sure. You know, and then whether they're going to go for 3 and 3 or the 2 and 4 might depend on what it's going to cost them to land the center back that they need. So, you know, this is a team that we've heard them say they're going back to their core way. We've seen a bunch of homegrowns 6 in one day, for example. We're seeing a renewed pursuit of academy kids, both as playing as academy players or even just taking part in first team training and perhaps signing with North Texas more than just less than the hybrid deals and homegrown deals. So like they are doing all those things. Maybe they're going to be after more U22 initiatives. So while it is year 1 of a rebuild, that sort of makes sense along the ideas of we're going to go for young sort of guys and develop and see how it goes. You know, how that holds up will be an interesting question. Their hit rate on U22s has not been good. But at their very minimum, I'd like to see them try and at least fill that 1 DP spot with a level of player that can let them at least be competitive, because, you know, right now we all feel like they haven't done enough to make it where they can compete. I don't mean at the top. I just mean like compete at all.
Right.
So they got some work to do for sure.
It's interesting because I would like to think that, you know, the center back situation isn't new. This is a problem that we've been talking about and a need for them to fill for over 2 seasons now.
I would say
Dating back
since,
yeah.
I would say even since Ziegler left and we started talking about needing to replace him, and a lot of the replacements have been underwhelming. So, it's been 4 years probably that we've been talking about this idea, and it's been at least a full year since we were adamantly saying they needed one, and the coach started saying they needed one. So, they've actively been after one since at least February of last year.
So the reason why I bring this up is I'm trying to take a measure of what should the curious fan be satisfied with for starting day for this club? Should because the center back thing has been this standing known hole that you have to fill. How in the world do you not find and hire a quality CB1 type center back, or are you trying to pass off a Lawless Abubakar as that player? And then B, the other part is refilling Allen's spot. Now, what I think they're trying to tell us is that they've been caught off guard by Allen being given the opportunity to, sell Allen at a profit, quote unquote, and get out from underneath him as a player and let him go do his own thing. So now we're not, but at the same time, should you be mad at them for not being ready to have to make a move on that? And so if they don't have an Allen replacement to start the season or within this opening window, should people be frustrated or angry about that?
Well, I think as a paying customer, you're allowed to be frustrated or felt like they haven't lived up to what you wanted, no matter what they do. Like if you're not satisfied as a customer, then don't be satisfied. It's your money. At the same time, like if you're a fan of this club, you kind of have to know how they operate and should have certain expectations. I think, you have to be a little bit pragmatic probably to be a fan of this club, to be fair. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be discontented. I never want to tell somebody that if you're mad, be mad, tell them you're mad. It's not our job to tell you to not be mad. But, in the second half of your question about Alan Velasco, I think their expectation with that new deal was that would tamp all that down. And in fact, it did the opposite. It blew it up. And then they were like, uh-oh. And the money came in and he went. Once he says, I'm not coming back, you kind of got to do what you got to do. But they could have easily had a short list. And that still doesn't mean like it's easy to do at that position. That's a position of where the kind of players you're going to want are probably going to be pretty locked up at this point and deep in a season. That may be very difficult to do, that one. That's why the Evander one makes so much sense for them to really try hard and go after that. Mm-hmm. And by the way, Luciano Acosta, I don't hear anything but that FC Dallas on that. That appears to not be something they're interested in, probably because of his age, because as we've said, this is a multi-year project and he's already 31, I guess. So, or more. I can't remember exactly how old he is. So
all indications are the Evander thing is a real reach for Dallas.
It's tough because FC Cincinnati apparently is also in for him, and they've got a little more money than Dallas does in general terms. They don't really, but the way the teams operate, they do. They're losing Acosta, and they want to put Evander right into that spot, so that's going to be tough.
They'll probably be willing to pay him more. They're a better squad.
Yep.
There's a lot of advantages.
Lots of advantages there for Evander over Dallas. Yeah. So Dallas is going to have to sort of, maybe use that Brazilian connection that they have in their front office. Their head scout, head TD, and their soccer ops guy are all Brazilian. So, or Brazilian connected, if not they're actually Brazilian. But
maybe they'll money whip.
Maybe Dallas has tons of money laying around, and the Hunts aren't short on money.
All right,
but look, that one may be harder to do. The center back one, that's the thing. Like we know for sure that they have understood that they needed a center back because I started talking to Nico about it back in last February, and then they tried to get one last summer and he failed a physical. And we know of guys they've put bid-ins on or at least called about right now. So they've been working on that one for a year. So if they can't get a center back in, and that's where when I have said like, everyone around the club keeps telling me center back coming, but none of them can be very definitive about it. So I don't know whether they all just think that that's happening because of the way the club's acting, or they actually know that one's coming. So I don't know what to tell people other than like, we're 3 weeks away and right now they only have 2 center backs, and your mileage can vary on how good those guys are. And you would assume if you're going to trade Nkosi Tafari away, who's an incredibly budget-friendly and cap-friendly center back, that you must know you have something coming. But
Well, that's why I tell everybody at least give yourself until the window opens to really start to fret about this. But this also takes me back to the thing I wanted to talk about originally before we get into the details of camp and everything, which is this word ambition. Because I can't remember where, but somewhere either in social media or in your Discord or something, somebody was talking about, hey, I hear people talk about ambition. This may not even have been Dallas specific. But it's like, what do you mean by that? Like, when you say you want to see your team to have ambition, what is the context for that? And I'm curious from the two of you each, what do you think is an appropriate level of ambition for Dan and Clark Hunt going into the 2025 season? Taking into context all of the little bits and pieces. We already know that they've tried to replace a lot of the roster with a lot of these pieces they've already acquired. And we only know that we think they're trying to replace other pieces, and those are still TBD. So what do you think is an appropriate expectation of ambition for the season? I'll start with Dan.
Don't finish bottom. Get some young pieces that you can start to... some project pieces. Something that as you go through, hopefully 4 or 5 year cycle of a build, that by the time the team should be in a place to win, those players have matured and advanced quite a bit. I think that's really it. It's seeing where the growth comes from.
Okay.
I would like to see, a Velasco replacement and a center back. That the Velasco replacement needs to be a DP level player, but as Dan said, it's not somebody who's 31 to 34. And it needs to be somebody who's young enough that over a 3 or 4 year project, they will peak out and be at their top level, that they can be a contributing piece for years at that DP level of play. And the same thing is true of center back. It doesn't need to be a DP, but you want to have that player be valuable enough, I think, that they're over that TAM threshold, which is, the Paul Arriola 1.7 and down. You don't want to go, if you can help it, up to that 1.7, but something around $1 million player that still is young enough that you feel like if I invest, maybe they're not peaked out yet, maybe they're 24 or 23, and then like 2 or 3 years down the line, that's my big, huge stud center back, who's hitting the peak of his career. To be completely honest, what you want is a Nkosi Tafare, but better. Like one that's a Nkosi Tafare that's worth $1 million. Mm-hmm. A guy who is, maybe 2 years in, he's 26, 27, 28 years old. So I'd like to see that level of, I don't want to see panic moves or give up moves. Like there is no relegation here. So yeah, like a spoon season would suck. Like a season trying to fight into the playoffs would suck, but it would be even worse if you were to you just jettison deals that were handcuffing you. Don't sign more deals that will handcuff you. If you have to wait, if you have to maybe stink it up a little bit, have enough faith in your coach and have enough faith that you're going to eventually get who you want, and don't kill your next 3 years in panic because you haven't been able to get there yet right now. But there is a point at which you're going to be like, guys, listen, I mean, it's got to have to happen eventually. And maybe the summer is where you start to really ask questions if there's nothing happening even that far along.
Okay, I've got a quick question. So we're talking about ambition, right? Ambition is a very subjective thing. Peter, you mentioned Atlanta's spending. Mm-hmm. 35 million's really, really impressive. That's great. Emmanuel Latte-Lath, 22 million. That's probably double what he's worth. Is that still ambition, or is that just wasting money for the sake of trying to get something big and shiny?
I think in Atlanta's case with Garth, I think it is ambition. Garth's in Atlanta, right?
Yeah, and so is Chris Henderson.
Yeah. So I would say that they feel that's an investment because they truly believe in the player. I agree with you. Look, I think $35 million for 2 players of any name coming to play in this league is silly. This league, I don't think this is a league that you go out and pay $35 million for 2 players for yet. I just don't think it's at that level overall. I know that's happening, but I also think this is a league that has so much money and is in such a move to try to elevate its standing that it's overpaying for certain players. And I think that guy in particular is a very good example of that. Because nobody else is going to give them $22 million for him, are they?
No, you'd be lucky to find someone that'd give him 12.
Right. But they may believe in him so much that they're willing to overpay to get him because Middlesbrough wouldn't, part with him for a less amount of money, I guess. I don't know. So I think Atlanta's ambition is driven by the fact that they've got an owner willing to put out that kind of money because they want to win MLS Cup.
I think to be fair to the Hunts, I think they also have the ambitions to win MLS Cup. They're just not going to do it that way. Remember that 22 million is the number that we think, or not that we think, that people have said that Dallas has labeled as the price for Petar Musa. So they're going to outgo at 22 million, not income at 22 million. So their ambition to get to the top of this league is to do it by grinding and getting homegrowns and developing player U22 initiatives and developing, it's hard to say that that's not ambitious. I think it is ambitious. I think it's very difficult to do it that way.
It's a different kind of ambition.
Yeah. It's a lot harder to buy, a lot easier to buy your way to the top. You use a lot of money. The way that the Hunts are talking about doing it, you need soccer people that can spot young talent and nurture and develop it at a prolific rate in order to get a whole team that good.
And because the team has been so bad for so long, over several coaches now, it is reality that the ambition may be that this is, to Dan's point, a long-term project. Their ambition may be is to have something really ready to go for when the stadium is completed. That may be their ambition. I don't know.
Yeah, certainly could be.
Well, it's fun to watch other teams spend their money for sure. And it does feel like there are more and more MLS teams willing to spend a lot more money than Dallas is. And by the way, when I bring up the stat about, Atlanta spending more in one day than Dallas has in its history, that's a comparison you could make to several MLS teams. That's not a Dallas specific thing. I just happen to know that number. So I don't want anybody to think I'm just picking on Dallas for that. So you could certainly point that same gun at Colorado, for example, I believe. And other MLS clubs.
For sure.
So the window will be open by the time most people are listening to this particular episode. Before we move on to the details, just Buzz, I'm interested in your prediction of what you truly think in your gut is going to happen in terms of this roster by the time kickoff happens later this month.
I think they will get a center back of some kind. I don't know how good it's going to be.
2 legs, 2 arms.
They will get a center back. Hopefully, I think actually they might get 2 because they only have 2. Like, I think you need 5, but right now they have 2. So they definitely need at least 2, but I think they will get 1 for sure and probably the second. I think that's important. And then I don't think they're going to get a 10 unless they can get a Vander. Excuse me. If they can get a Vander, then great. But if they can't, which I think is probably 10% chance they can get a Vander, then they're going to have to go to Europe, and then it becomes a lot harder. And then I don't think they'll pull it off by the time the season starts. That's 3 weeks away. Because right now they're probably waiting to see if they can get a Vander. So if it'll probably take a week or 2 before they can figure that out, and then it's like, okay, off to Europe, and now there's no way you're getting that done by the time season starts. That's my current belief. And then they have a couple of holes they need to fill, in terms of just roster basic construction that I think they'll probably get to, but none of those are going to be important or splashy or worth heavy levels of discussion other than they sort of need to happen. So I think that the center back spot will get addressed in some way.
Your mileage may vary kind of thing.
Yeah, it may not be the CB1 we all want. If that takes a little bit longer and you have to go into the season with, Ibiaga and Abubakar and a guy, then okay, let's cross our fingers and hope nobody gets hurt, and there's some people around here who could probably play center back if you absolutely had to, you can cobble something together, but none of it's going to be ideal. But I do think they'll get a guy, I'm hoping it'll be CB1 and not CB3 or 4, however you want to count them. So that's my prediction. I know that's not a rousing prediction, but that's my prediction.
What do you think, Dan?
Right, I'm going to be super optimistic. They are going to sign 3 centre backs by the end of, let's say, next week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you just guessing, or do you know something?
I'm guessing.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to guarantee that any of them can even play soccer at a rec level, but they will have contracts.
They've reached out to Dan, apparently, for about a contract.
I'm too old and busted.
Yeah.
They wait till they see his Achilles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which one? The one that's stitched together, or the one that feels like it's going to go?
Take your pick. What do you think they'll do about the Allen's position?
I think it's kind of like the Thiago Santos thing. I'm sure there is an element of they've had guys scouted because, Allen to Argentina has been a thing for quite a while. But did they have any option ready to go? Probably not.
Yeah.
I think I would add that in the context of the center back, right, you need somebody to fill what we call the Omar Gonzalez role, right? That veteran, maybe fourth guy that's just sort of maybe at best case scenario, he's going to play like 5 to 10 games. I think they're going to get that kind of player done as a center back. So then the question is, can they also get a CB1? That's where I am with.
See, I would imagine that whoever your CB4 and 5 is are not a veteran player because they've got that in Ibiaga. And they've even arguably have it to a degree in Boubacar. I mean, it's not like he's a spring chicken himself. He's not as old as Ibiaga, but so I could see them doing a 4 and a 5 as a young player, like young players. And then if they do sign a 1, my concern is that whoever they sign, they are going to want to tout as some sort of significant addition and really bolster the defense. And I'm worried that everybody's going to go, really? Him? Because that was kind of how we came across with Omar Gonzalez when they signed Omar. Like they made Omar sound like they were signing some stalwart, like he's 36 years old, guys. And it kind of played out the way we all thought it would.
See, I just kind of figured that they think of Ibiaga as the CB2, like the full-time 30-game plus starter, and that Boubacar basically took Nkosi Tafari's spot, if you will, as CB3.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you still need, like, you're right, 4 and 5 could be young guys. They could be. But maybe one of them's a young guy, maybe one of them's Omar again. Not Omar specifically, but like that. Like, I don't know, Tim Parker. Who knows? Right. So
see, I'll tell you, I could predict them taking in Tim Parker and presenting him as their new CB1.
Oh man.
Or Tim Parker and Abuba, the 3, Abubakar, Ibiaga, and Tim Parker is some sort of rotating 3 for 2 positions.
Sure, I could see that, but that's exactly what I don't want. When we talked about ambition, like that's what I don't want, because like Tim Parker's old enough that like right now, sure, that's a value depth piece, but that's not a dude who's going to be 3 seasons in peak baller, right? That's no. So, that I could definitely see that happening for sure, but I definitely is what I don't want 100%. I would prefer, as you say, 2 young guys. In fact, if you're going to give me 2 U22 signings, initiative signings at center back instead of that, that would be fine.
Well, it's fun to talk about this because after today, when the highlights of their game against Brøndby came out,
Lordy,
this is not in its current state. All right, so there's the caveat. In its current state, which means it's not a complete roster and it's preseason and all the guys are just getting together, it does not look good.
Yeah, well, there's pieces missing. There's lack of depth. There's guys that are in, a week and a half of training form. It's just like today was really rough. And we didn't see much of the first game, but this game was against a team, Brøndby, who is, just barely over 500 in the Danish Super League. It was not a really particular, like for example, the first half was the starters, effectively what is probably right now the starters. And from the highlights, it looks like they basically had 2 shots on goal. Maybe there was a third, and they weren't anywhere close to being on goal. And
they had 2 shots, not 2 shots on goal.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, 2 to 3 shots, none of them on goal, let alone like actually being something that needed to be saved. And so that's an output. Like if those guys played 90 minutes, you're looking at like 4 or 5 shots for the entire game. And they just did not produce any kind of real chances going forward against a team which admittedly is in their mid-season break. So a team that's but I have no idea what kind of team they rolled out there for this game. For all I know, they play their U23 team. I don't know anything about Brøndby. So it raises questions about, how's this team going to look? And admittedly there are pieces missing. So I think that at this point in the season, though, that is just the second game. And as pessimistic as I was watching it, I think you have to give them some time to play in and get it going a little bit. But man, that was tough to watch the highlights of that thing. It was not comfortable. They gave up another goal on a corner kick. The two goals they scored, one of them was the most ludicrous own goal I've ever seen, where a guy scored on his own goalie from like way over on the touchline in the corner, trying to center a ball to the goalie who wasn't in the goal for some reason. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And then Logan got a PK, earned a PK and took it. So it was not a really great performance, but there are some things we can take away from the two games so far. And that is that Quills is definitely looking like he's locked into a 4-2-3-1. We did see a 4-4-2, according to Gareth Melser, for maybe 10, 15 minutes in the start of the second half when they brought in Farrington and played him next to Musa. So that is something they're exploring. But, we're starting to get an idea from some tactics that there's definitely some rotations happening where you can see the coach looking at combinations of players, whether it be across the front line or on different sides, or whether that combination includes, fullback to wing and that kind of thing. So these are not formations. They're not tactical 11s that we should lock in by any means, but we are starting to see some trends in what he's doing.
We also should say historically, we all know that in preseason this early, the team can look amazing or bad, and it has zero indication of how the season's going to go.
Well, when you're talking about a team that might be missing as many as 5 players that are in the key rotation between missed signings and players that aren't there, it's hard to really get super excited. But this was one of the rougher performances I've ever seen in a preseason, even though it was just highlights we saw. We saw 2 different highlight packages, and it just didn't look good. Try not to panic about it, because I do know there's plenty of time. And I think that Quill spent a lot of the first week doing fitness and running. So I don't think that, he wanted us to play with a team that's much more aggressive and much more vertical and much quicker and pacier and running a lot. So they obviously needed to work on that a fair bit off of the previous 2 regimes that didn't play that way. So they got work to do on that regard.
Dan, last week I asked you to take your temperature and you said you were enjoying all this. Are you still enjoying all this?
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely chaotic. It's wonderful. I think we're a week away from really the first test. They play Houston preseason, and then a couple of weeks later play them in the league. That's your perfect chance to see, the point where they're, done with early camp, where it's mostly fitness and just getting to know people. They're actually into tactics. They're into prepping for the season, and how that part of the season progresses until we get to the opening game in Houston.
It's frustrating because they are so close to the start of the season and there are so many holes to fill. And it does have this vibe that whatever you see on day one could be very different a few weeks later as the window continues to stay open. But my biggest fear, Buzz, is that what we're going to hear is, well, we didn't find what we wanted, so we're going to try to do things in July. And that always drives me nuts, specifically about this league and because we all know that summer additions to MLS teams, historically, this isn't a universal ironclad rule, but historically, mid-season additions in this team rarely flip a team's the way the outcome of the season goes. And it also, my bigger concern is how far gone will the season have gotten from them by the time they get any new additions in the summer, if in fact that's the path they choose to go.
Oh, they moved the window up a little bit, so that'll help a tiny bit. But that's the thing, right? Like there's a step in between there. Like, yes, if they say, you know what, we're going to wait for the summer, that's better for me than it is to say do something dumb like give 31-year-old Tim Parker a 4-year guaranteed contract, right? Like that's worse than just waiting. if you want to bring in, if you want to re-sign Omar Gonzalez for one more season, just as a pure depth piece, because you're running out of time in the window, you need a body. That I would be better with than doing something dumb and locking up a guy a long time under a contract you can't get out of. So, is that what we want? No, of course not. But I'll take, you know what, we're going to wait for the window. There's more players available, international wise, big open thing, blah, blah, all that stuff. So I'm okay with that. If that's what it comes to. That's not what I want, obviously, but yeah, I don't think it's going to come to that.
But there's a significant difference in the situation between the center back story and the Alan Velasco replacement story, because the center back thing they should have resolved a long time ago, and to not have a quality CB1 in line for this season, like they should have had him now. He should be in camp with them training right now. The fact that they don't even have the guy, and now you got to go through all of this integration and chemistry stuff at the start of the season is frustrating enough as it is. But the idea that you may have to wait another transfer window would be, really.
Well, that's true. If you don't get a Velasco replacement in the next 3 weeks, especially because you're trying to wait for Evander, okay, that's fine. But if you don't get a center back after a year of looking, that's going to be a massive indictment of the people in charge of this club, because you've been looking for a year.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, how after a year you don't have a guy? It's like, come on. There needs to be. I mean, I'll give you, like, maybe it's not going to be tomorrow, Friday or Saturday, okay, maybe it's the middle of next week, whatever. That's fine. You're right. They should have been in here already. They should have been here last summer when they had a guy that failed a physical who keeps playing fine, pretty much. But, at some point you got to start asking questions, about what's going on.
So let's ask some other questions and noticing some of the lineups and things like that. Like, for example, why is Enes Sali not playing?
Well, that's a good question. I specifically asked if Enes Sali was injured, and the answer is no, he's not injured. He was for sure in Portugal. We saw pictures of him, training. And so, the bottom line is, like, if it's not like he wasn't even on the bench today. It wasn't like he was on the bench. Like Tarek Scott was on the bench and just didn't get in. Enes Sali wasn't even on the bench. So
are they getting ready to move him or sell him?
Maybe. I mean, that really raises red flags for either he's so bad that the coach was like, you know what, you're not even going to be on the bench, which is crazy because they got academy guys on the bench that weren't even there were no way they were getting in. No offense to those kids, but they're not getting in when you have other, like Nico Montoya, for example, is the academy goalkeeper there.
Mm-hmm.
They still have Collodi and Carrera who need to play. Nico Montoya is not getting in a real game over there, but yet he's there. I was sitting on the bench, and Sali is not on the bench. Okay, what's going on there? So either there's such a banishment or falling out that he's like, you know what, you're not even on the bench, or something's coming down the pipe. I mean, that's how we come up with these things, is we look around and we go, what is going on? And officially 100% not injured. So, your guess is as good as mine. Like, I have a theory, and my theory is I don't think that he's good enough to help FC Dallas. So why not try and recoup something? That's what I hope it is, I guess. Maybe it's not a theory. Maybe it's a hope. And not like you're so crap that I'm not even putting you on the bench. That would be bad.
Did we ever screw down the veracity of the $3 million transfer fee for him? Because that would have put him in like top 4 purchases in this club's history, I think it was.
Yeah, I had sources at FC Dallas that told me that, like, it's definitely not $3 million. I tried to pin them down on how much it was, and they wouldn't come back. Transfer Market has it 2.7, which is, not 3, but
that's that's also in euros as well. So.
Oh yeah, okay, then they're probably just going with the original 3. So I'm told it's not 3, but I can't get anybody. I think they're probably not super happy with how much it is relative to what it looks like he's worth. So they probably won't ever say until maybe he's long gone. But I'm going to bet it's still north of $1 million. Even at that price, it ain't good. So. If you honestly, at this point, if you can open up the U22 spot and recoup any of that money at all on some kind of loan or whatever, just take it. Sunk cost. Let's go. Move on.
Question number 2: where is Show?
Okay, yeah, Show Cafumana. Now this is much more important actually, because this is a very important player in the center of midfield. Tsiki Ntsabeleng's been starting at that 6'8" deep position, which we know Tsiki is better when he's playing at that high 10 or wing. So Tsiki back there is bad. So Show is apparently sick. I don't know what it is, but he has not been in any of the camp at all. So he's missed 3 weeks with whatever this sickness is. And that sounds bad. So, because like when you're talking about, I'm not a doctor, but I know like when I've certainly been sick, we've all been sick. When you're sick to a level that you're out 3 weeks or blocked from traveling for 3 weeks or whatever
That's got to be COVID, right?
Surely, who knows? I don't know. Like HIPAA wise, they're not going to tell us, not until it's way clear or something, they won't speak about it, I'm sure. But, it raises questions about like how fit he would be, when he does come, whenever that is, like how fit's he going to be? And he's a very important player, right? Based on other losses. This is a position that they really need him to be there because we don't know what's happening with Paxton. We don't know what's happening officially with Illarramendi. This is that's a key one. They need to get him in and get him going because he's going to need to start a lot of games.
Anybody else from the highlights or any of the notes from the 2 games that you'd like to discuss? Or
well, the kid that was the guest player, he was one of 3 guest players, but the one that he's now played in 2 games. His name is Alvaro Augusto. Dan, is that Augusto, I think? Anyway, he's Brazilian Portuguese center back, 19 years old. They've now used him twice. And like, if you get that level of camp integration and training play, that makes me think that FC Dallas might actually be interested in him. Now, if they are, that's not a player we should be very concerned about. That's going to be a North Texas or a very bottom of the FC Dallas roster going down and playing with North Texas. It's not important.
So you say, sir.
Yeah, if that's center back 3 going into the season where you got problems.
Oh, that's center back 1.
That's CB1? Yeah, 19-year-old kid he plays for a second division Portuguese's U23 team. So, like, if they really are interested in him, and he's played enough that triggered in my brain, like, oh, maybe they really are interested in that particular player. Because they did bring over an academy guy who could have gotten those minutes, Ian Charles, who's a nice looking player who's going to UCLA. That's not a chump program. He's a good player for the U18 team. So they could have just easily played him. And the fact they played this other kid who's not on the roster at all tells you a little bit about what level of interest they might have.
Interesting. And so they got one more game left?
No, they're on their way back. They got.
That's right. They were only doing 2, weren't they?
Yep. But that trip was as much about getting away and getting sequestered and, getting some team building going as anything, And I guess the one last thing from training is that it looks like Enzo Newman is ahead of Herbert Indley at right back. So he's your second right back right now. Newman, the 19-year-old kid from Oregon State.
And did we mention, or did we know in the last episode about Ntsabeleng's contract extension?
We did not, I don't think. I think that was a new piece.
Okay.
I should have put it in there. It should be in the format. It's not. Oh, yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
It's there. Yep.
That's what made me bring it up. I was trying to pass it off as if I knew as I was talking about, and I was casually bringing it up. But thanks for ruining that, Buzz.
I fumbled that. Yeah, we did not know about that. So, again, depends on the number. But, somebody asked me, like, why in the world would you do that? I was like, hey, man, the guy, he works his tail off. He doesn't complain. Everybody loves him. His number is really cheap. He can play a couple of spots. That's great. Sometimes you just need dudes in the middle to the bottom of the part of the roster. You can play him he can start if he needs to. You're not going to build a championship team around him, but it's a great roster piece. No reason not to extend that guy if the number is good.
I mean, you've given him a 2 and 2. It's not like you've just locked yourself in for life.
Yeah, fair.
And even if he doesn't progress with the team, if his number is, relatively low, he is a fantastic trade piece. He is a domestic player. He has his green card. Still young enough, cheap. You've got option years on him. Nice and easy. That's something that Miami would dream of.
Yeah, he's 26. So, he's starting to move into the, peak next 4 years of his career. He'll be as good as he gets. So, but, a guy could still play for 8 years in the league because he's pretty fit, takes care of himself,
All right, so Buzz, I get asked this question pretty regularly, and I gave up. I thought I had a solid answer a few weeks ago, but now I have no idea what's happening with Illarramendi and the potential of his return to this team.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you that he's not coming back. And the reason I'm going to say that is the math of international spots. Dallas has 9, right? They traded for 1 in the Jesus Ferreira deal. So I'm going to count them real quick, and it's visual, not on paper, so you have to just bear with me. But in no particular order: 1, Anderson Julio; 2, Petter Musa; 3, Romario, the new Brazilian guy who, by the way, has got a calf problem or something. That's why he hasn't played. 4, Patrickson Delgado. 5, Show Cafumana. 6, Pedrinho. 7, Enes Sali. 8, new center back. 9, new 10. That's it. You're out of space. So, even if, and that's not counting Giovanni Jesus, who should be in that list and is not because we think he's going on IR. And that's not counting a second, perhaps, center back that could be in that equation. And then you can't get into that list without moving somebody out. So the math just doesn't add up for Illarramendi. And again, effectively, I think Romario took his spot. You're talking about a 3-year project. Illarramendi's 34. It just doesn't make any sense. So, there's nothing official, but I'm going to tell you that he's not coming back. That you can move on from that.
Are we okay with that? I can't figure out. I guess it depends on what the plan is, right?
Yeah, it's at this point, it's a project. Obviously, if Ramiro stinks, then maybe we're going to be mad. But, Ramiro's 31, so that's 3 years. You could actually probably have him up to maybe 34, and depending on how good he is, his deal is 20 through 26 with an option. So, again, just 2 years. So not terrible, but it's all not awesome. But, we all like Illarramendi. He was one of the classiest players we've ever seen here in this club. But, it's just, it doesn't make sense. And if you were one midfielder away from making a run, it would be totally different than it is when you're looking at a complete rebuild. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Anything else about preseason or what's coming up? So what's next at this point? They get back to Dallas and then what?
Well, they got, a couple more games. They're going to do as Dan mentioned, they got a scrimmage against Dynamo,
Houston.
Against Houston, which I think is a radio stream and not a video stream. Then they're going to play Tulsa, FC Tulsa, which is a USL championship team. That's a closed door game. And then they're going to be at Atlanta as their last preseason game. And I'm told that Atlanta's going to be streaming that game. So you will be able to see that game.
Is the Houston game here?
Yes.
Is it, can you go?
If you have season tickets, I believe they offered season ticket holders a chance to buy a ticket, but I don't think it's open door for
or walk up or anything like that.
I don't, don't quote me because obviously we're not working for the team, but I'm pretty sure that that I've only seen the season ticket holders offered a ticket, is all I know of. Maybe you can, I don't know. I do know that I was told specifically no video stream, but the radio guys are going to do a stream. So you'll at least get some level of information out of that game. Hopefully that'll be Steve Davis and Owen, hopefully. That's what it means.
I'm certain they've sent an email out to the media telling them what availability for tickets is, and I just haven't read it.
Yeah, it's right out there somewhere. I actually would like to, real quick, as we wrap up, like a sort of a where we are in preseason, I just want to point out like things that are locked and things that I think are a battle, if that's cool with you guys.
Cool.
Can we do that? All right. So at goalkeeper, obviously Martin Paz is 1. We don't know who's number 2, Carrera or Collodi. And honestly, it doesn't matter until Paz is suspended, hurt, or goes on international.
Until it does. It doesn't matter until it does.
Yeah. Now if they end up loaning somebody out and you see a veteran come in, that'll tell us a lot. But in the meantime, like those two guys can battle, and they may not even know between them who's two until it matters. Left back.
Well, hold on a second. But before you move on, do
Okay.
you have a personal preference of one over the other? Because if let's say Martin Paz gets hurt in the first month of the season, is out for the season. Do you have faith that either one of those guys could fill that role for the rest of the season?
I have some concerns about each of them, in terms of like long term and like even like if you needed to finish the season, I do have concerns about them. They're not Martin Paz.
Well, they're both kids.
You're both kids. One of them is younger and has got more of a profile and more of a youth international experience. That's Carrera. The other has way more actual playing experience, and has actually been in a lot of games when Carrera has been in less games, but some of his were international. And there's some videos that float around the world of him actually playing against Brazil and just standing on his head and making like 13 saves, so Carrera's a little hot and cold. Collodi is 6 feet, 6'1", and not 6'5" or 6'7", so there are reservations about both of them, but I'm perfectly content with either one of them starting an MLS game. They both were ballers at North Texas, and they were ready to move on. And I would love to see both of them play at a level above that, like USL Championship, just to get some games would be great. Otherwise cup games are going to be few and far between for those two guys. And they're really going to have the life of a keeper, right?
I think it's interesting that this is the first time in quite a while that Dallas will not have kind of a 1A, 1B goalkeeper situation.
Yeah.
In terms of experience.
I mean, I think it probably says something about their faith in those two guys that's what they've gone with. I mean, because they had Jimmy, they could have had Jimmy back, with a bigger offer or something, maybe. Jimmy got a longer deal and I think more money to go to Houston. So they probably would have had to pony up, but they must have felt good about these other two guys. I mean, Clody had an amazing year. I'm sure that really helped. I mean, he is the MLS Next Pro Keeper of the Year. So,
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to derail you on that. Go ahead, keep going there.
Good question. Obviously, left back is a lock, Marco Farfan, and then nothing. They need. There's guys that you can play there in a pinch, but they need a backup left back for sure. They don't have anybody that's really an Eric Quill left back. Not right now. They don't.
Okay.
So that's a problem. Center back, like we've done that forever. Ibiaga, Boubacar, and that's it. That's a problem. Right back, Shaq Moore is a lock. Pinning him getting like a U.S. national team call-ups. He's going to play every game. He's not hurt. And some people talked about maybe a Gold Cup roster. I don't know. If he gets that, that's cool. Enzo Newman, to me, clearly looks like at this point the number 2. I think they should loan Herbert Enderley out. I think he's already done enough at North Texas. If you're going to have Enzo Newman be number 2, you might as well let Enderley go play in the USL or something and try and improve. I don't want to give up on that asset, but he's getting passed by a kid who's 19. That's a little bit of a problem. All right, at 6'8", this is where Illarramendi was. They're playing a double pivot, so which one is a 6 and which one's an 8 is a good question. They don't really have like a pure 6 on this team. And this is Editor Buzz coming in here. I should have mentioned Nolan Norris in this section as more of a pure 6 player, although he's quite low in the rotation in terms of the bigger picture. But right now in training, it's Leggett and Tsiki Ntsabeleng, which is
yipes
worrying. Obviously, it should be Show Cafumana, and Leggett, or maybe Romario is in there as a starting 6. That'd actually be a really interesting question once he gets healthy and once Show shows up, how that breaks out. Because I think Leggett back there is good. I like that idea. And then, of course, the real X factor is Paxton Pomykal, who, if he's healthy, is a $1 million+ player and probably needs to be starting. And then I'm super hyped, of course, about the last guy, Diego Garcia, about his future. But, there's some health questions in there, and we have not seen anywhere close to what we think is the real group in that particular spot. So stay tuned to see how that breaks out. That'll be a fun one to watch because you actually have 3 or maybe even 4 guys that think they should be the starter in that spot. And that's going to be fascinating to watch for 2 spots. So the 10, the Alan Vasquez replacement, obviously DP waiting to see what happens. Right now, the first choice is Patrickson Delgado, and the second choice is Anthony Ramirez. So I imagine you can look at that and think, yep, they need a DP in that spot. You do something in that spot. Winger is fascinating because they have like 30 guys that could play wing, but right now, based on the scrimmages so far, Anderson Julio is a lock starter. The question is which side. They've been flipping him around. He's played on both sides, but has been the left starter twice now. Pedrinho started on the right one game, and then Bernie did on the other game. And Leo Chu has come off the bench twice. So like those are the main 4 guys that he looks like he's trying to figure out. Anderson, Julio, and who. We'll see what Quill ends up doing with that spot. And then you can get into all kinds of dudes that can play in those spots if you really had to. Tsiki, Ramirez, you got homegrowns that could go there. You've got, Newman or Enderley could go, there's plenty of choices. The one that I think is the biggest and most interesting question is Logan Farrington. Could you play him at right wing possibly? And I think that's something to keep an eye on because if we now move to the 9 position right now, Muso's number 1 clearly, and Logan is number 2 clearly. Tariq Scott's not even getting into games hardly at all, just some garbage minutes here and there. So clearly they're locking Logan in as the second 9 for now. I'm not sure if that doesn't tweak out some other way in the long run. So that's the other question. So that gives you, you have maybe like 4 or 5 locks in there and then a whole bunch of question marks as we go into week 3 of the camp.
Lots going on. Let's see if there was anything else I wanted to touch on about the team in particular. Yeah, that's a lot. That's interesting stuff, Buzz. I mean, there's a lot of holes to fill, is what it sounds like to me.
Lots of holes, lots of questions. But, new coach, half new roster, not surprising. Roster's not even finished. Lots to be determined still.
Okay. Put on a happy face.
Yeah, try not to no panic yet. Not quite time to panic.
A couple of notes, by the way. It was really cool yesterday during the insane Champions League, all the games at one time thing, watching Pappy get a start for PSV against Liverpool in the Champions League. His amazing chest pass was awesome for their goal. But his little deft finish, and I don't care if he touched it or not, I don't know if it was telepathic or he put a touch on it, scoring a goal against Liverpool in the Champions League is the coolest farting thing I've seen in a long time, and I loved every second of it.
Yeah, how did Andy take it?
I haven't asked him yet. I'll find out on Saturday.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. Listen, we're all on the Pappy hype train.
But now we found out that he has a knee injury and is out probably for the rest of the season. I don't know what the injury. They didn't say he needed surgery, but apparently it's bad enough that they think he's done for a while.
Yeah, he was just starting to get those big offers rolling in too.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. Well, I didn't want him to go to West Ham because it's funny. Right after, literally 2 days before I saw the rumor that West Ham had put a bid in for him, I had been talking with Lars, and Lars had been making the comment that he thought you could do an entire hour-long podcast just talking about what a black hole West Ham is for strikers.
Yeah, I mean, who wants to play for Nate Shelley? That's ridiculous.
And then the other part of that is, by the way, has anybody else noticed just ever so quietly that Jesus Ferreira has yet to play for Seattle?
Oh, he's not even played?
No.
Oh, my Lord.
No, Paul played in their last friendly.
Oh, man.
Jesus has not yet played for them in a game.
Are we supposed to be surprised by this?
Yeah. I'm not surprised, but I feel really bad. I mean, obviously he was carrying something all last year, really.
Well, I mean, this comes on the heels of getting dumped from the national team because of, not being game fit. Like, who's game fit in January?
Well, we've talked about Jesus having a little bit of this lingering hamstring trouble, and maybe it's keeping him from being able to, really get going and running and something or whatever. Or maybe something's left over with the hernia, or whatever it was. Boy, I just feel bad for the kid. Maybe they got rid of him at the right time.
Maybe. I just thought that I found that very curious. I mean, they're still very high on him and saying nice things about him in training, but the fact that he's not playing in the games seems a bit.
Yeah.
Knowing what we know, I feel like we know things that maybe Seattle folk don't know, and that's why I'm worried. We're probably more concerned about it than they are.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're just smoke disguise, just blowing a bunch of smoke, and he's absolutely ready to go.
Well, I'm sure they're not going to want to say that he's trash, in terms of like injury or whatever. Like, we just paid a lot for this guy. We don't want to oh yeah, he's fine.
Yeah.
They're not going to be like he's wrecked.
And Dan, you want to talk about the big U.S. Open Cup news and how Dallas gets to play in the Open Cup this year? Again.
Yeah, we finally got the format for 2025. We knew that 4 OSC was going to play in the first round. That was the only one we did know. Texoma gets to play from the first round. FC Dallas is a seed starting in the round of 32. So the first game will be, somewhere in DFW. They may not want to host it at Toyota Stadium with the construction. But yeah, a really weird breakdown of it where it seems like they're kind of limiting every team to 2 competitions, right? You can either play Leagues Cup and Champions Cup, or some combination. You can't play Leagues Cup, Champions Cup, and Open Cup. But effectively, it's the 16 worst teams in MLS that are. But the positive with that is that one of the worst teams in MLS won the Open Cup. So,
once upon a time.
No. I'm saying FC Dallas will not get dumped out of the cup by Sporting Kansas City because they are not in the Open Cup, thanks to the Champions Cup.
Clear path.
Clear. I all I know is that I have my fingers crossed for the inevitable, whatever round it would be, matchup of Michelle FC Dallas versus Michelle Foro.
He's not involved with 4-0 anymore.
I know, but still, like 4-0
fun.
having to play FC Dallas somewhere here in the Dallas area. God, it would be awesome if they played down
or Texoma for that matter.
No, they get to play at that 4-0 facility down there off of Preston, down in the creek bed on that hard fake turf surface that 4-0 is homed at. That would be very funny.
I don't think they're allowed to use that.
They're not. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. They would never play there.
But can you imagine it? It's a Prince of Peace school.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They play at what? They play at Is that where they play their games at Prince of Peace?
They're Open Cup games, yeah.
Oh wow,
Peter, that's vibes of old Denton Stadium when Billy Sleeth for the Seattle Sounders Select PDL one hand stomped FC Dallas into the turf.
Yep.
Got himself an MLS contract.
Yep. Those are the days for sure.
That's a throwback deep cut, by the way.
And then yesterday, the big news, and depending on where you fall into the following of things of women's soccer, it either was a tree that fell in the woods that nobody saw, or it was a massive earthquake. Again, your attention span for that kind of stuff very much varies on this. But Dallas Trinity announcing that Lexi Missimo is going to be playing for them. They signed a contract with her through the 26-27 season. This is a big deal in terms of women's soccer and USLSL and NWSL and all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to move the needle in the general audience of the world, but it's definitely in the women's soccer game a massive, massive signing. I think this is the biggest signing in USL Super League history. They lost Sam Meza, but I think this is an upgrade over Sam Meza. And this is a player that for sure had offers from NWSL teams and maybe had offers from international teams as well. You're talking about the all-time everything at University of Texas. Came up through every youth national team you can imagine, up through the U23 team, and was even part of that most recent women's national team futures camp that they ran. She and Trinity Byers, her friend at UT, they're probably the last generation of elite women that came out of your elite academies here in Texas and went to college. Those girls are all now signing at 17, 18 years old straight to NWSL teams and maybe eventually here Super League teams. So she may be the end of the generation that actually still went to college, but an absolutely phenomenal player. They gave her the 10 jersey. She's a very prolific assister and goal scorer. Like, she comes out of the midfield on the late runs, scores boatloads of goals and gets boatloads of assists. So a really exciting player if you're into women's soccer.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about this and trying to figure out what her reasoning for wanting to do this, because I'm sure she had big money offers to sign with NWSL. And I'm assuming I think the question is, what can Dallas Trinity offer her that NWSL can't or wouldn't? And I'm going to guess and speculate that it has something to do with control. Like, I bet whatever deal she signed with them, even if it does run through 27, if Lexi decides she wants to move somewhere, she controls that in a way that she couldn't if she had signed with an NWSL team. And probably prevents her from being loaned out or whatever, in a way that she couldn't control that.
One thing as well is NWSL has a pretty restrictive salary cap. I think Sophia Smith's the highest paid player in NWSL, and she wouldn't register as a DP in MLS.
Mm. Yeah, they obviously, of course, didn't give out any details about her contract, but in the press conference, she talked endlessly about coming home and playing in front of her parents and her friends and her family, and in this market she grew up in, this town she grew up in. Talked about her solar coaches and talked about all these influences on her life that are here. Like, her whole family was at the thing, like multiple generations of people. It obviously is a huge deal on that end. I think, Peter, you're probably right about the financials and the control being a big part of it, but she definitely is, calling her own shot here and going to a place that she seems to have wanted. This isn't like I didn't have anything else and I'm just taking this because I can. It's like, this is clearly her choice, and they're really lucky to have her because this is a phenomenal player.
I think it's a win-win for her all the way around. I'm sure she got an amount of money that is great. I think she gets to play at home in front of her family and help the local soccer scene and that team ramp up. And I think that she probably has some level of say in how her future goes. You know, if she really rockets off and they finish off the season strong, she decides she wants to leave this summer, I'm sure she probably has the right to do that, or she can stick through the end of the 26-27 season and just kind of play it out, and however it works best for her. I bet this is a win-win-win all the way around for Lexi, 100%.
It's a massive win for the league as well. We've been talking about, you know, not necessarily commercially with the attendances, but in terms of a disparity between NWSL and USL Super League as you know, first division leagues, you've suddenly got one of those young absolute elite players have gone the other way.
Well, and this is all happening at a time that the NWSL is losing some of their biggest name players to overseas. I mean, the Naomi Girma situation, the Nightswanger sale. What was the other one I saw today? She went to Arsenal. Who was it that went to Arsenal? Anyway, I mean, there's multiple, big name players, national team players that are leaving NWSL. And their competitor here in the United States just signed probably arguably the best player out of college. So,
yeah,
it's interesting times.
And this is a statement of intent kind of signing too from Dallas Trinity, because I talked to Charlie Neal about this kind of concept, way back when they started this team. They left the 10 jersey open. They knew that they were going to have some kids coming out of college. They knew that because they were on a different calendar than NWSL, that there would be certain players that would come free and be open to be signed in this window. So, I don't know if they had this Lexi somewhat teed up from back in August, but they certainly had something like this in mind. And obviously quite smart of them to have waited, and done the loan for Sam Meza to fill the gap, and then when that loan ends at the end of the first half of the season, you now go in and splash for a player that's even more of a big name and an exciting prospect. It's really a smart play on their part.
Well, hold on to your pants, because the spring half of the season kicks off in essentially 2 weeks. They've got the game at the Cotton Bowl against Tampa Bay on the 15th. So yeah. I'm assuming she'll be available to play then if she wants to. So that may be a good day to go check out Lexi Missimo and her debut for
Dallas she's Trinity. Been training with the team for about a week was my impression. So I'm sure she'll be ready to go.
And I will give you the exclusive news that we are scheduled to have Lexi live on the Kick Around this Saturday. Nice. I think we're supposed to have her on towards the end of the show. So she is scheduled to appear. I will caveat it with that. We'll see if we actually make it happen, but that's on the books for Saturday. So please tune in.
Right.
All right. On to other things. Dallas Trinity also re-signed Julia Dorsey. Did we mention that already? I'm sorry.
No, we have not. She's their right back, right wing back. She was with North Carolina. She was one of their draft picks this last year, and they did not pick her up at the end of the season. So she was free, and then Dallas re-signed her. So she was basically every game starter for them. So it was a good get her signed up and locked up.
And in a not very well kept secret, we now know where the Garland USLC team's stadium location is going to be, and a lot more information tied around that. And man, I gotta say, it's pretty exciting that we're going to have a second division league team here in the area playing a little bit closer to the urban core, and they're going to have their own 10,000 seat stadium right along the George Bush Freeway in Garland. That's pretty exciting stuff, Buzz.
Yeah, right there at Horford, there's a plot that's already been cleared, and they put out a little video that showed, the 10 employees they have standing in the middle of that field. And then the Garland, I think mayor, or maybe, it was Matt Valentine, the owner, was talking about the specifics. It's going to have practice fields for their team, their headquarters, some community soccer fields, and a 10,000 seat stadium, and it's currently going through some city council stuff, but everyone's pretty excited about it, and obviously a 10,000 seat stadium is a perfect venue for that level of team, that USL championship level of team. The one really fascinating thing is it's pretty close to FC Dallas. It's within like a 30-minute, that what you would think of as the FC Dallas core. It'll be really interesting to watch how that relationship goes over the years. But Yeah, super exciting. And from all I can tell, this thing is supposed to be ready for when they start play in 2027. So that's awesome.
Did they have any drawings of it?
Not yet. No, the
Okay.
video is more of a hype video, and it just shows sort of the location. If you pause the video, you could tell where it was. I don't know. I'm sure that somewhere there are renderings and drawings and stuff to be, 2 seasons out from this thing going. Keep in mind that like this kind of stadium isn't like building Toyota Stadium. This is just a 10,000 seat stadium. The economies of scale and the timeline and stuff is much different, but still very exciting and very cool. And one of about 8 pro teams we're about to have here in the Metroplex. It's just crazy.
They're also doing a pretty smart, slow rollout. They're not, the branding's going to come, I think it's the end of May. It's not a case of let's get everything out and then sit on it for 2 years. It's like keep the hype going and have that like slow build.
Yep.
It'll be fun to keep an eye on and see where it heads. I mean, it's obviously a bit in a ways off, but it'll be pretty great. Okay, and let's see. Didn't Tacoma announce a new center back signing today?
They've done 3 players in the last 2 days.
Oh, okay.
2 center backs, a guy named Preston Kilwin and Jordan Chavez. Jordan Chavez, both of those guys actually all 3 of these guys have been in and out of the USL Championship, maybe down to USL 1 and back and forth. And a left back named Jorge Corrales. So they're starting in the back and going forward. And the goalkeeper was the first guy they got. So I'm sure they'll keep knocking them out over the next. I mean, they're a month from playing too, and they got like 4 players announced, so they got to get going. But I'm sure it'll come fast and furious from here on out.
Does it bother anybody else Tacoma can sign center backs?
Yeah, and a lefty one, in fact. Too.
You know what? I think they've got that really cool little team store, and I think a really great T-shirt would be, "Damn it, Peter, Tacoma's in Washington."
I keep saying Tacoma, don't I?
You do.
Texoma. Gosh, I'm such an idiot.
It's because of the Toyota truck that's right down the street.
Yeah, it is.
Toyota Stadium.
It's that because I'm an idiot. It's both those things.
Come on.
Texoma. Gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I keep reading that as Tacoma. Anybody? Let me start over. Anybody else notice that Texoma can sign center backs?
Yeah, I'm sure there's guys in the USL Championship that are available. I mean, if that's your cup of tea,
Yeah.
Maybe Quill will call up some guys from New Mexico or something. You never know.
Let's see what else is on the list here. North Texas has signed a couple players.
Yep. North Texas signed Sam Sarver, who's the Paxton Pomacall clone in their 2nd round draft pick. Same size, same hairline, same tenacity.
Well. Paxton Pomacall's hairline is much closer to his eyes
than Sarver's. Is it though?
Yeah. When I saw him in practice, it was a bit of a windy day, and his hair was fully blown back, and it looked like Hulk Hogan.
Well, if you go watch Sam Sarver play, you'll think it's a Paxton Pomacall clone because he has the same sort of tenacity and energy and run through a wall kind of vibe. Winger or 9, I think he'll probably be a winger long term. What he replaced for North Texas, I don't know. He was the 2nd round draft pick. By reports, he did fairly well in FC Dallas's first week of camp, but they did not take him to Portugal, which is understandable because they have 5,000 wings on the team already. But so he signed with North Texas ahead of camp even opening, so they obviously like him enough. And then the other signing is a kid named Zach Malomo. Pretty sure, I don't know if this is a hybrid deal or not, but this is a guy that was on my projected homegrown target list. Technically he's a U17 right now, which means he's about 16, 17 years old. He's a left back of this. The FC Dallas loves this converted striker 9 to outside back, but he's a left-footed guy, good size, good power, good pace, and plenty of skill too. Like he's got a good YouTube video out there if anyone wants to watch it. So my guess is he'll basically get every start at left back with North Texas next year, because basically there's no player between him and the first team open left back spot. That spot's not his now, but this is a guy that in my estimation in 2 seasons should be in the first team competing for a starting job.
Man, we just pounding through all this stuff. Anything else that you guys wanted to talk about? Any kit talk? Is there any kit talk to be done today?
Oh, there was a couple more drops, weren't there?
As
I look up the Discord channel now.
I don't think there was any. Oh, Houston's?
Houston,
Houston's was nice.
Oh, that kid is fantastic, dude.
If they wear it with white shorts.
Yes. Well, that's always been their problem because a sea of orange is awful. but that particular kit has got a little throwback to it, and it is just really well done. I mean,
It's got
yeah.
2 throwbacks to it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
That's it. It's got 2 throwbacks to it.
What are
All
they?
right, well,
The first, the 2005 shirt, the one that had the collar, it's got the same like swirly pattern as that, and then it's got the light blue from the 2006 and 2007 when they won MLS Cup.
and I think Dan pointed out that both of those kits he's referencing, they wore white shorts with it. So that obviously would be really great. Since they brought black heavy into their brand, which coincided with James Harden buying a chunk of the team, they've not done that. They've not had white shorts. They've always had the solid orange, but they look so much better with the white. And look, we all hate Houston and all that stuff, but I'm enough of a soccer aficionado, a kid aficionado, that I'm like, I don't care. Like, if they have a good kid, that's good. That's good for the league. It's good for the game to have good kits.
Albeit upsetting.
Yep. And Orlando's new purple looks fantastic, and they're wearing it with white shorts, which is great too. It looks really good.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Damn it. All to hell.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so Dallas is getting a third kit this year?
Yes. I think Dan has more details on that.
Dan, we turn to you. What will the new third kit look like, sir?
It will have a neck hole and sleeves.
Do we know what color it's going to be? I mean, I'm assuming because they have a red kit and they have a white kit. Is the third kit going to be blue?
Given the theme of the ones last year, forget Miami because they have nothing to throw back to. LAFC went for that kind of LA Aztecs-ish shirt.
Right.
LA Galaxy went for their 96. Portland went for the Clive Charles maroon from the 70s or 80s. It's going to be throwback, right? So that means one of two things. That means burn or tornado.
I'm gonna say, because the new secondary kit is theoretically this light gray, light bluish kind of color, that this secondary kit will be of a dark burn persuasion.
But I don't know what that could be, because burn colors are the burn jerseys have been red and white,
except for
the best one they had.
Well, there was the black one,
right? The throwback black one.
Oh,
so if you're talking third jerseys and you're talking about FC Dallas,
the third jersey could be black.
What you got to remember is it's not necessarily an exact throwback. It could be like a reverse retro kind of thing, like the NHL does, where they kind of flip the colors on the old styles.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Now I'm intrigued.
Some fertile ground there to play with. I mean, it'll be fun to see what they do, because those other kits that they did last year, they're almost all fantastic. So I have really high hopes for this new, third kit, and there should be a set of gazelles that go with it, and some streetwear kind of stuff. It should be real exciting.
Yeah, that I have in my collection. I've got the black Athleta shirt with I love that thing. That was always one of my favorite burn shirts from the back in the day.
Yeah. And they were with red socks too, black shorts and red socks, which was a fun mix. Yeah, that was cool.
Man, I didn't even think about the option of the third kit being black. That would be cool. I was assuming it would be blue just because that would round out the trio of team colors. But if it's going to be a throwback, blue certainly wasn't one of those back in the day. So,
well, I mean, Portland doesn't play in claret. Miami doesn't play in teal. So, it's totally feasible.
Yeah, I suppose. All right. Well, we'll just keep our eye open on that. Well, good kit talk, I suppose. All right, boys. Well, I don't know. Anything else? Are we done?
Man, that was a lot.
Yeah, that's a late one.
Oh, wow. We're over an hour. I didn't realize we'd crossed the hour-long Rubicon. Okay.
Let's just double down on the idea that, like, it's okay to be concerned and it's okay to be worried. I would suggest not to panic in terms of FC Dallas yet. Give them some time into this, a couple weeks of the season, and then, but at the same time, if you're a paying client, and you're not happy with them, let them know. They don't know if you don't tell them. So
wise and sage words from the original soccer influencer.
They certainly don't listen to us. So, you might as well get out there and get in their ears.
Well, they don't have to listen to us. They have their own podcast now.
And, if you want to complain about it too much, I've got a team that was recently in the Premier League and is about to be in League One that I can show you.
Yeah, what in the world is going on with Luton?
Oh, let's see. We had a coach that kind of just went away from logic and started playing a back three, even though he didn't have 3 centre backs.
Where have we heard of that before?
Yeah, it's amazing, right? They've been chasing a striker from Wickham who is evidently not coming. So, they've been a weird one. If you want to talk about kind of cheaping out and stuff, the Premier League parachute payments are like 50 million a year, right? For 2
and they're
to
not
3
spending
years.
it.
In the summer, every transfer was a free transfer, except for one. They spent 6 million on a centre back.
That's got to be so aggravating. Is that because they're using the money to pay the players that they still have under contract from the Premier League season?
No, they just wanted to do the funding on the stadium differently, so they channeling that money that way.
Ah, interesting. I'm sorry, Dan. Two straight relegations would super suck.
I mean, we had 3, so I'm not going to cry myself to sleep about it.
All right.
Just wave at Wrexham as they go by the other way.
Yeah, that ain't going to happen in a million years.
No.
They're going to top out soon. There's nowhere to, they're going to hit a point where you actually have to invest money, and they're not going to do that.
Wow. All right. Very good. Well, thank you, boys. Let's see what happens between now, because by the time we do this next pod next week, the window will be wide open, and hopefully we will have heard something, some sort of indication that movement is happening. Right? Right?
Boy, yeah.
Yeah.
Oof,
Right?
Gosh. I hope
There's
so.
definitely movement.
Yeah.
There's players that they've been linked with that have turned them down, but at least they're trying to make those moves.
They're giving it the old college try, Peter.
I love it.
Riffity riff rat.
I love the college try.
Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by listeners like you. If you enjoy this podcast, if you enjoy our coverage at Third Degree, why don't you join us on our Patreon and give us a little support? If you do, you get a little extra content there. And if you join at the Three Amigos level, you get access to our wonderful community on our Discord. Patreon.com/Third Degree. Thanks again for all your support.
All right. Well, thank you, boys. Very good. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Good luck this weekend, and thank you, Buzz. Always great to talk to you.
Yeah, man. Thank both of y'all for being here.
And thank you, FC Dallas Curious fan. We're in this together. We will speak to you next week on another episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
It will all be okay.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.